business. On this program, you'll be hearing the voice of Anne, the universal sister. Corporate world and business is an avenue I want to use to bring to your attention what the world is experiencing today in the business and corporate world. Stay tuned. So, what do I have for you today on corporate business world? For starters, I don't know if you've heard the news, but this is mind boggling. What am I talking about? What I am trying to talk about is the stock exchange that fell today on the floors of different stock exchange locations in the world, especially in New York. Americans were giddy today when everybody went to work because stocks fell and people were wondering, is this related to what happened in 1987? According to stockbrokers, that was precisely what happened. And it nearly led into a recession. So as we speak or as we hear my voice, businessmen and women in the corporate world are shaking and wondering, is the world's economic power coming to a recession, or what precisely is happening? I told you, it's really happening big time in the corporate world and business world. That's just a tidbit of what I have for you today on corporate and business world. The main focus of this discussion is Aliko Dangote's refinery and all his other efforts in the Nigerian economy. Aliko Dangote is one of the richest men in West Africa, and he's been in business for more than 20 years. His companies first launched business in the sugar production business. And Nigeria was in the throes of losing touch, in that sector. They boosted the economy, and today Nigeria is one of the greatest producers of sugar. Dangote also launched into the cement business, and today they are flourishing. But of recent, it's a new development altogether. The Dangote business magnate has moved into production of oil and gas servicing as we know it in Nigeria today. So let's give a congratulatory clap or whatever to those people. They're doing their best. But there are so many other stories surrounding this whole refinery thing and all the other things that Dangote is doing with his business. So matters arising, let us know that it seems the Nigerian economy or its people rather is not really favoring them. As of stories flying around, they say in fact the diesel they produce has so many quantity of sulfur in it as opposed to what Nigerians have been importing thus far. Let me give you a background. Nigeria is supposed to be one of the richest countries in West Africa. They've got oil, mineral, and natural resources, and it's supposed to be, vibing in that area. The refineries in Nigeria no longer function, and hence Dangote is in the business. And we're supposed to support him, right? Especially the government, as his people claim. So I don't want to sound critical or anything like that, but as someone who creates content, I look at issues from all angles objectively. I don't want to pick sides or anything. As we speak now, Nigeria is in a hard situation with the whole protests going on that is supposed to last throughout August. Why are they protesting? Bad governance and so many other issues, as our youth are saying and telling us on the different placards they have. I have a reservation with the protest just on one angle, and that angle is the one that says or that makes Nigerians think that it is the duty of the government to provide food. Something as minute as food should be something that citizens or the private sector is striving to really boost, right? Food. I haven't heard any other nation coming out to protest about not having enough food or the cost of food in the market. The problem is that there is no competition in that angle of agriculture. So Nigeria totally relies on the north to grow food, vegetables, fruits, and everything. And that is not supposed to be the case. So there should be this competition whereby we have farmers in the north, have in the south, the west, and the eastern part of the country. That's what happens in other nations. You know, for a country as big or well put as Nigeria is supposed to be, saying that food is a problem is supposed to make people laugh, even though we are not laughing because people are really hungry. So, what should be done? I dropped our oil issue or refinery of Dangote and his people. So, his people are saying it seems Nigerians are not grateful. In fact, what do we call this one? The UAE had invited them to come and build their refinery, that they will give them crude, they wouldn't have a trouble. But here they are in their country, and yet the government seems not to be supporting them, and they tell many stories that they've been supplying to other countries. They can supply Nigeria's need in that direction. Nigeria needs about just 45% of what they are doing, whereas they can give Nigerians that and even export 55% of what they produce. As of now, they're only doing diesel, but in a week or two, they will start with petrol. So they keep going back and forth and thinking people are not supporting us. And in talking in that terms, I see them trying to say Nigeria should maintain one refinery. No, that is still the same problem happening now with agriculture. Depending on only the northerners to produce food for us is the problem. Why can't we have mechanized farms in different geopolitical zones of Nigeria? That is what will solve the problem. So these guys saying they have a refinery, Nigeria can totally depend on them and not on any other nation or other players in the industry to come. That will also lead us to a bigger problem next few years. We want everything that happens in the corporate and business world in Nigeria to be competitive, have more than 3 or 4 players in those sectors. That way, we can maintain this full assurance that nothing will ever go wrong. Yeah, that is the solution. In as much as Aliko Dangote and his group is trying to make things happen in our nation, we appreciate them. Anyone who says they don't will be a joker or something else. But then they should be open minded to know that when we keep favoring one group as opposed to having many players in a particular sector of any industry, then Nigeria will keep being relegated to the background. The US depends on many countries to give them oil and those sort of things. So even if we are like one of the major producers of crude and yet we can't do it ourselves, something else for us to note is that it is not the work of government to be in oil production. That's why the whole NNPC thing seems like a facade, you know, and Dangote and his people keep struggling with them. So Tinubu has said, give these guys crude as much as they want and they can pay in naira. Yet NNPC seems to be dilly-dallying, like they don't trust them. And the Dangote people keep saying that all of the other players seems to be displaying fake documents or certificates, to be in that business. That actually the guys who are bringing in sulfur filled diesel into the country is not Dangote, but these other players that have so-called fake documents of business. How true is this situation, going around? And we don't have to be sentimental about business. You know, business is something that people have to be objective about. We don't need to take sides. There needs to be this serious fact finding thing so we really know what is happening. But I must repeat, and I stand to say that Nigeria should not or cannot rely on just Dangote's refinery. We need competition. Fine, you guys are starting the work, you're eager, you're zealous, but I mean, as businessmen and women, you know what this thing puts on the table. Yeah, we've been back and forth, and they go on to say that after all, Nigeria had given this go ahead to many other companies, and at the end of the day, they were the only ones who delivered. And as such, Nigerians must take them serious and not for granted. Those are bogus words, if I may say. It is business. It's not about we know you, you are our brother, you are a businessman at the end of the day. And then they go on to say that, in fact, the company or the refinery should be seen as a Nigerian entity, like it's owned by the nation. You see how this whole sentimentality thing begins to build, even in business. No, the Dangote refinery is not Nigeria's property. It's not a business. You are running your private business. Let it remain private, because we all know what happens in Africa when private stuff becomes government thing. Okay. So we know that I don't really need to go into that direction. So Dangote's refinery should remain his and his business alone. We appreciate him and what he's doing with his group, but we need other players in that field, up to about four other players. Yes, so there has to be that competition. So we have this thing always and at fair prices. If this price doesn't work, then we move on to another price that works for us. Beautiful. Dangote and his group are doing well. But I also want to suggest to that group, they also produce pasta, and you're doing sugar, you're doing pasta. Why can't they just break out into an agricultural industry? If they say, or as they claim, that they're doing their best and utmost for Nigerians, what is happening now is something that should also spur them on into boosting the economy of Nigeria, as they say that that is their aim or goal, to see that Nigeria comes alive again. Food is the major trouble as we speak now. A common man and woman cannot eat. There is this woman in the protest who goes about with an empty pot. She says she eats only once a day. How can Nigerians be crying about food when we have lands, green, lush vegetation? Is that not a shame? I've been saying this thing behind the scenes. Dangote is somewhat in the agricultural sector by producing pasta, sugar, and some other table stuff. Why can't they break out into agriculture full time? Because that is the major trouble at the moment. That is what is causing the heat emanating from the whole protesting. Agriculture, agriculture. We need mechanized farms all over Nigeria, in the north, in the south, in the east, in the west. Yes, that is my heartfelt suggestion to the Dangote Group. Break out into agriculture. Break out into agriculture. Food is the cry of the common man in Nigeria as of today. I've been talking for a while. So if anyone has any comments or whatever to put there, I know people are not watching much. When they wake up, they're gonna see the video. But then when people take part or partake in live videos, it would be worthwhile that they contribute to the video, they can like the video, they can share, they can most importantly comment on the video. So the issue of Nigeria seems to be escalating from just little situation to things that the government cannot even manage. So our people, it is not in line that government should be producing food for its citizens. Government has its specific jurisdiction, as we know, in the executive, in the judiciary, and the other arm, you know, they provide job in the ministry for civil servants because that should be catered to in line with the work they are doing. But it is not the government that should provide jobs per se, apart from civil servants for citizens. It is citizens, especially those in the corporate and business world, that should make those things happen. That is how it is in all the developed nations that we tend to compare ourselves with. In the US, which is seen as one of the greatest economy, but which was rocking today. So if the American economy can rock as of today, with the whole stock exchange falling drastically and everyone is afraid what is happening, then the case of Nigeria having economic issues, should be like a baby diaper thing. So nations, can fall economically when issues arise. Although we haven't gotten to that level to say we are playing on the same level with these big guys, you know, but we are growing. But with growth should come understanding and wisdom to handle situations. But that does not seem to be the case with Nigerians. I don't know if it has to do with the high percentage of illiteracy, but many of our people are well traveled. They read, you know, they're on social media, they see what is happening, and why can't we go and line with the things we see happening around the world? So Nigerians are on social media. Well, many of them are there just to make some quick and side hustle money. But they seem not to be really incorporating what they are supposed to be learning from these things. We talk about Japan, Singapore, and so on. Is it the government that does all those things? You talk about China that seems to want to overtake the world. It is simply businessmen and women doing what they know how to do best. Well, we've had businessmen and women for ages in our country. Aba, Onisha, Lagos, big markets are the hub. People from even smaller African countries come there. So why is it that they can really go to the drawing board as businessmen, invite, what do we call these guys? Consultants and people who know how to do this. So one thing I see with this problem is that businessmen and women do not really collaborate with technocrats or scientists who really know this thing, you know, down to their foundation to say, what can we do? You want to go into agriculture. What do you think our land has to offer? What are the equipments we need? So those are the discussions businessmen in Nigeria need to begin to partake of with technocrats, technologists, scientists, and so on. That is what boosts all these bigger nations you see. It's not a government thing. The US, the United Kingdom, and different parts of the world is not about the government. It's about people in the corporate world. They are the ones that run the show economically. Government has no rules specifically in economics or how to handle all those things. Fine, they can always calculate the GDP and so on and so forth. Well, that can be their own role, but as for going down or putting the back down to do the show, it depends on the private sector, the businessmen and women in the corporate and business world to make those things happen. And they should work hand in hand with these guys who know the other side of the job. You guys are the ones doling out the money, whether in dollars, yen, or whatever. But those guys will be behind the scenes putting things together. So that's what our businessmen and women need to become aware of. That's how economies grow and explode. If Nigeria ever wishes to grow, that is the path they need to be on. And then other people who are not really in mainline business or in those corporate stuff can begin to diversify into other areas. All you see that our women want to do is do table marketing. You ask somebody, "Hey, what business do you want to do?" Food stuff. What is in food stuff? You put a basin of rice on one big table. You put beans, you put gari, you put no, those things are nothing. That's why we seem to remain where we are. What about, you know, embracing the ITC, going into the whole computer thing that the world is exploding into? It's at the tip of everybody. Our market women are using Android phones or even iPhones, and yet they can't really come to terms with what they are holding. That on that tiny phone, you can reach the world and get any information you want. You know, everybody seems to be doing the same thing. Let's begin to diversify and think out of the box. Our young people, another issue they have is laziness. They do not want to walk or think the way other young people around the world are doing. Carrying placards and going about hollering, shouting, and doing all sorts of things. For what? People would ask. Those things you're demanding for, we have bad governance. That's a given. That's a given. And I'm not saying the government doesn't have its fault, but what our people need to do is to sit together, ask themselves questions. Let's not just behave as if we can't think or we can't dialogue to really find out what is happening. It is businessmen and women who can solve the problem. Tell those our rich brothers and sisters to set up mechanized farms all over Nigeria. I tell you, if only four or just eight in our eight geopolitical zones can set up these mechanized farms, like within the next 1 year, this whole hunger thing will be turned around. You will see, and that's for a fact. We need these farms running already. And the first group of people I want to appeal to is to Aliko Dangote and his conglomerates. Diversify into agriculture. You have some things to do with agriculture, with your production of pasta, sugar, and some other agricultural products. You can produce what you sell. You don't need to rely on small farmers. Let small farmers produce what they can and sell them in what we call farmers markets, as they have in Europe and America. Farmers grow their stuff and they set up stalls in different places, like every say twice in a year or three times in a year they have this farmers market, and some of them run from week to week for about 3 months, and that is when they harvest their crops and they bring them to this farmers market where the common people can go to purchase things, or small families. But we need these mechanized farms to start running by big groups like Dangote and Co, so that companies who produce all those food things that we eat or other things can now purchase from them directly, and they use the other ones as their own selling points. So that's what we need. That is the problem. The common men and women need to eat. People are starving, as the pot carrying woman in the protest affirms. How can one survive on just one square meal a day? It's a pity that our people are dying of starvation, and that's for a fact. Yeah, people are really indeed dying of starvation. To what an end, when we have what it takes? We can no longer depend on the North to provide us food. This is a stark reality we face, and at the end of the day, we lay the blame at the feet of the government. The government that we know has never really been up and doing. Do they care that you're eating once a day? Another suggestion is that every Nigerian family should have a small land where you can even grow at least one or two crops. If it means battering your crop, so be it. You have this, you go collect something else from another person, or you sell what you have to buy what you need. It's really a laughing situation for Nigeria to see they're in the midst of food scarcity when we have rich lands that we can plant our crops and they will do very well. Stop depending on the Northerners is what we should be learning from this whole experience, and not laying the blame at the foot of government. So, Nigerians, it's high time we accepted the accept some blame for what is happening. Whatever goes wrong anywhere, everyone has a blame to share from that situation. The government has its own blame. Nigerian citizens have their own blame. But we rarely would accept that we have defaulted. It is always the government. It is always the government. It is high time we began thinking out of the box and helping ourselves and not totally depending on government to do even what no other government does in any other part of the world. How do you think your own government that never lives up to expectation can do? It is not a government that will feed you. We need those in the corporate and business world to facilitate these mechanized farms. And we can do it. America, agriculture is like the second largest industry where money comes from. Farmers are deemed one of the richest groups in the US. Go to states like Minnesota, Iowa, Dakota, North South Dakota. You see farms. Somebody says you can be traveling for like 5 hours and all you see are farmlands. Farmlands in all these farming states. And actually, there is no state in the US that don't have farmers. Mhm. Big time farming is what I'm talking about. You see large scale lands in all the states of the United States, 50, they have farms. And many times these farms sell their products. So, like in the state where I live in, Pennsylvania, we have this shop called Giant Eagle. Giant Eagle has its own farms or works with big time farmers. So they produce what they sell in their stores. Yes, you see water, you're buying water, you write Giant Eagle. You're buying fruits and vegetables, the name is boldly written oil, Giant Eagle oil, even though they still sell items from other producers. So they are the ones producing what they are selling in their stores or supermarkets, as we call them in Nigeria. We can do the same and end this whole hunger strike we are on. And let's remember that the onus is on all of us as citizens of that country. We should begin to ask ourselves the questions: what can we do as individuals, communities, groups, companies, corporate bodies? What can we do to salvage the situation? It's not always about government should do. Government has its own duty. It hasn't met those. You're giving them more roles to play. Dangote and his people should go venture into agriculture and the other big companies that sell all the food items that we know. They need to have their own farms. That's how those shows run in America and Europe and other developed nations that you like to compare yourselves to. If you are comparing yourself to them, remember that it is not the government that runs those shows. It is those people in the corporate and business world. So you've been listening or hearing the voice of Angie, Investment Sister, and on this show, we've been talking about the corporate and business world. So I'm glad for those who were able to join, those who have been coming in and out. Endeavor to comment on the video, share the video, like the video, and subscribe to my page as well. So it would not really be befitting that a few of us get this information. Information on social media is supposed to be dispersed by people who find such information, because everyone needs to hear the story. It shouldn't just be left for a few. So the more I get to know my subscribers and all that, the more we shall get to understand one another. So if you see this video, perchance you may like it. Whatever you don't like, let me know in the comment section, and we can continue to rub minds together. What are your suggestions about the way forward for Nigeria? I have given my own suggestions. If you have suggestions, put it in the comment section so others can have access to them. And that will only happen if you share the video. Okay? So please share the video. Yep. About now, I'll be wrapping up on my expose of the corporate world and business world as we know it today. So the world is shaking because the stock market fell today, but it will rise. Stocks will definitely rise. I doubt the world or America is going to go into a recession. For that not to happen, every hand must be on deck. Are you a businessman? Do you roll in the corporate world? Then Nigeria is counting on you. The world is looking up to businessmen and women who command the money, put out the money there so economies can rise again. Thank you to my viewers. I think we're going to draw the curtain right here. Once again, I am Andy, Universal Sister. Let me know what you think in the comment section. Take care now, and God bless you. Bye.